Okay, you can write time on your quiz. Let me pray for us and we'll dive in. Father, thank you for letting us learn this ancient language. I pray you would help us. Help us learn the vocabulary, the grammar. Help us see the biblical theology. I pray in everything that you would be glorified. And we pray it all in Christ's name. Amen. So, if we want to review, can anyone say out loud from memory the perfect active indicative of katal? Can anyone say it? So this is going to be your active verb. It's going to be indicative because it's stating a fact, and it's perfect because it's completed action.
You want the whole chart?
The whole chart.
Katal, Katala, Katalta, Katalta, Katali, Katalu, Kataltim, Kataltin, Katala.
Perfect. Katal, Katila. So notice that's a metheg there, so you kind of bridle that. Katalta, so that's accented. Katalt, and whenever you have two schwas at the end of the word, they're both silent. So katalt, katalti, katelu, so you've got your metheg. You have no separate feminine form, so you can just list it once and call it a common. Kataltim, kataltin, katalnu, right? So we really want to get where we can do that chart, because once we get this chart, then we can go to a PL and say it's the same chart, just double the middle radical. So we really want to get this down. These are our perfect endings. All right. Can anyone say the imperfect from memory without looking? Elizabeth, would you like to try? Right? Perfect. That's right. Tiktolna. Perfect. 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 Yiktol, tiktol, tiktol, tiktali, ektol. Yiktilu. So this is going to be a silent schwa, yik, and this is going to be a vocal. So anytime you have two in the middle of the word, that's how they always work. The first one's silent, the second one's vocal. Yiktilu, tiktol na, tiktilu, tiktol na, niktol. Got it exactly right. Well done. So what's weird about an imperfect in Hebrew for us as English speakers?
It doesn't identify if it's a previous action or a future action.
Right. Just incompleted. So it could be he was killing, or it could be he will be killing, and it can mean either one of those things. So I don't know how they functioned with that ambiguity in their language, but obviously they could do it. And I'm told that some African languages still do this. So we have our review of the nouns. We have that down. When you have definite article with a guttural. The gutturals reject the doubling dagesh. And so the aleph will lengthen, the hay and het will do nothing, the ayin will lengthen, and the resh will lengthen. So it goes from a short A to a long A, right? And then we have these words to memorize for Friday. So Ab is father. What's your mnemonic device? Abba, father. So that's the Aramaic version of the Hebrew. Avraham, father of a great people. Avram, exalted father. So all of those. And it may be related to the verb Abba, that means to be willing. So it may be that the idea of a father is someone who's willing, who is for you. But all of those mnemonic device for father. And so Abimelech is my father's king. Melchizedek, king of righteousness. So all those, you start getting those names, you can remember this word. Whenever the list gives you 3 radicals with no vowels, they're telling you it's a verb. I don't know why they do that, but that's the way they do it. So this is from Shema, and it means hear. What's your mnemonic device? Or do you have a mnemonic device? So do you know what you call that Jewish prayer that Jews say when they get up in the morning and when they go to sleep at night? Do you know what that's called? What's it called? The Shema. So it comes from this word, the imperative of this word. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'kol levavka u'v'kol nafshika u'v'kol me'odeka. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one, and you will love the Lord your God with all your nefesh, with all your, with all your heart, with all your nefesh, and with all your muchness is what it says in Hebrew, which everything that makes you, you, I think is what that means. So that's my mnemonic device, Shema, hear. Simeon, look, the Lord has heard my plea. That's what his name means. Shemuel, Samuel means El has heard. So all related to this word. Yatsah, I just had to memorize that one. I don't have a mnemonic device. You might picture Yahtzee dice going out of the shaker. That might be one way, but I just had to memorize Yatsah to go out. Ir is a town or city. I'm trying to think what my mnemonic device for that was. I think I just had to memorize that one too. But lakak, I've got one for that. This is the verb when Eve reaches out her hands and takes, she lakaks. When the sons of God take the daughters of men for wives, lakak word. But my mnemonic device is it's the word in Ezekiel 36 where God says, I will lakak you from the nations. I will take you from the nations. Yoshav is to sit or to dwell, and for them, those were the same words. Don't ask me how I got there, but somehow the word Michigan is related to this word, and I think about living in cold Michigan, and that got me Yoshav. It doesn't even make sense, but that was my mnemonic device. Maybe you can come up with a better one. Echad, I got that from the Shema. Shema Israel Adonai Elohecha Adonai Echad. The Lord is one. Or if you get to verse 5, I think it's there was Vayhi Erev Vayhi Boker Yom Echad, day one. So if you can remember any of those, Echad, it means one. It's really interesting to me that Yom Echad, day one, if you type in that phrase in a computer program, it'll pull up, I think it's Zechariah 14:1, and it talks about this eschatological day where there's no night, and it calls that eschatological day Yom Echad. And it's really weird to me to think that it might be describing God's timeless eternity, because like time breaks out from Yom Echad, and then when time ends, it goes back to Yom Echad. And God is saying, a day for me is as 1,000 years. 1,000 years is a day. It's like he's not experiencing sequential time the same way we are. And I don't know. I don't know if that word's related to this or not. Im is if. I think I just had to memorize that one. Moot or mavet, all the moot words are die. Salmavet is the when I'm in the valley of Salmavet, when death is so close to me that it's casting its shadow over me. That's the word. Methuselah, his name means he sends it and they die, which is really interesting because if you take time to add up the years, Methuselah dies when the flood happens. So it might be that somehow he was foreshadowing the flood. Shuv is turn back. Allah, I just had to memorize is go up. Now, this is our friend Moshe. So if you ever heard like a lot of Israeli people are named Moshe, like Moshe Aaron, comes from this word spelled exactly that way.
My housemate, his name's Moses, but we call him Moshi for short.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And this is very close to the word Messiah. There's just a slight difference there. So Moses to Messiah. Sham. Some people think that the word Shamayim, the word for heaven, is actually means there is water there. I'm not sure I buy that, but some people say that it is made of two. Shana is year. If you can remember Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. So Rosh Hashanah is the civil New Year's in the Jewish calendar. And David is David. So a little bit of a challenge, not many helpful mnemonic devices, but we're only memorizing 15 words, so I think we can handle that. So from 40 to 55 in the list. Did you know, in Hebrew we'll do something fun just to kind of catch our breath. Did you know in Hebrew that the alphabet is also the numbers system? So societies that do that, or it's called gematria. So help me with the alphabet to write it out. First letter is Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zion, Chet, Tet, Yod. I'm just going to repeat Yod here. What's the next one? Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samik, Ayin, Pei, Sadi, Kof, Resh, Sin, Shin. So it isn't two, that isn't two letters, it's one. And then the last one, Tav. So the way that works is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll repeat 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 200, 300, 400. So that was their system. And it's called gematria when you do that. If you do your number system like that, what's true of every word?
It's a combination of numbers.
Yeah, it has an intrinsic number. What's the intrinsic number for David? So what's the Dalet? 4. What's the Vav? 6. And what's the Dalet again? 4. So what's the inherent numeric value of David's name? Anywhere in the Bible they play with 14 connected with David? Matthew 1. All the generations from Abraham to David are 14, and all the ones from David to the Babylonian captivity, 14, and from the Babylonian captivity to Jesus, 14. So gematria seems weird to us, but there is gematria in the Bible. There are lots of places where there's gematria in the Bible. The clearest places are in the Proverbs, where it says, these are the Proverbs of Solomon, and then you go through and count them up, and it's the numeric value of Solomon's name. These are the Proverbs collected by Hezekiah. You go through and count them up, it's the numeric value of Hezekiah's name. Some people think that there's a connection between Eleazar and 318, the number of people who went and attacked the 5 kings, because the rabbis play with the idea that it's actually just Abraham and Eleazar. I don't buy that one, but it is interesting that the 318 is the numeric value of Eleazar's name. In the New Testament, Yeshua is 888. That's interesting. The numeric value of Nero Caesar is 666 in Hebrew. And that weird one in John 21 where they catch all those fish. How many fish are there? It's 153 fish. And people do backflips trying to figure out what that is. And so Jerome said, oh, it's, 150 fish in the sea. Well, that's maybe not true. And they're talking about the Sea of Galilee anyway. And Augustine, whom I love, is an interpreter. He says, no problem. It's 153 is the number 1 to 17 added up. And you go through 1 plus 2 plus 3, and it is 17. And Augustine said, so it's clear, it's the 10 Commandments and the 7 of grace. And it's like, where did that come from? And somebody says, oh, it's easy. 153 is the, or 17 is the 8th prime number. And it's like, okay, I'm like way out of my... But then somebody comes along and says, what's the first description of the people of God in the Bible? First name given to the people of God in the Bible. And it may be in Genesis 6, the B'nai Ha-Elohim, the sons of God. And guess what the numeric value of B'nai Ha-Elohim is? If you add up the letters using that thing, let's take a wild stab in the dark. It's 153, and so you got the disciples catching all the, sons of God, and the net doesn't break and the boat doesn't sink, and you wonder, okay, if you grew up in a culture where every word has an inherent number, then maybe something like that is going on. I know gematria is used enough in Hebrew where I've got a concordance where half the numbers are written in gematria. And I remember in the days before computers standing there, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het. Okay, 8. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, Het, Yud. Kop, Lamed, Mem. Okay, that's 30. 37. If I've done that once, I've done it hundreds, maybe thousands of times with that book because the numbers are written in gematria. Jews use gematria. If you go to a Jewish cemetery, some of the numbers will be in gematria in terms of dates. So it is interesting, and it may be that David, if you can remember David in 14, that may help you remember that word, but it may be a long way around to remember that word. You may just have better luck just memorizing it. All right, so when we read this, Audrey, would you like to tackle that first sentence and maybe read it out loud in Hebrew and then anything you can translate? You got the doubling dagesh too, that's good. And what do you recognize, any of that? Right, the ba in the reshit is beginning. Created, and that katal, katala, katal. So katal, that's your third masculine singular, and that's what this is. It's lengthened because the aleph is there, but it's a third masculine singular. So he created God. Good, and you picked up that this is a dual ending, mayim. Good. Jacob, would you like to do this one? You can read it in Hebrew, and then if you can get any of the words.
I get the letters mixed up sometimes. The first one, Vav,
It's va. So the difference between a vav and a noon, and they're very close, aren't they? So this is going to be the vav, and this is going to be the noon. So the noon has a little bit of a flatter top than the vav.
What about noon's final form?
Noon final form, the tail of it's going to go way below the line. I don't see one on here yet, but yeah, it still has a flat top, but the tail is going to go to about right here. If give you a little help, ve, ha. This is a silent letter, so you say this letter, ah rates. Ve, ha, ah rates. Ha, ye, ta. To, who, va. And you want to say bohu, but it doesn't have the dot, so you have to say vohu. Tohu va bohu. And the earth was tohu va bohu. Sometimes I look at my study and say, my study is tohu va bohu. There are books everywhere, papers everywhere, computer cords everywhere. And I like that because it kind of rhymes, tohu va bohu. Lindsay, would you like to try this one? Good. Tehom. Good. Perfect. And what I did here is I tried to make parallel things in parallel. So al panei tehom, al panei hamayim. On the faces of the abyss, the deep, on the faces of the waters. So that's good. Elizabeth, would you like to tackle that one? Perfect. So you got the furtive patah. So you say that ve, ru, and then you say it ach. So this is the only time you say a vowel before you say the consonant. And they call that, I think, a furtive patah. The ruach, and you said it exactly rightly. Elohim, that's in construct, the ruach of Elohim. Merachefet, so this is going to be a feminine PL participle. Anytime you have a mem with two dots and a doubled middle radical, it's always going to be a PL participle. This is a guttural, so you can't double it. But that at tet, that's going to be the feminine participial ending. What blows my mind about that is, one, what does intense hovering mean? You know, when the spirit is intensely hovering, PL hovering. But the second thing is, you know that strange book in the Old Testament, Ecclesiastes? And like, you read through it and it's like, what am I supposed to do with this? Is this like good advice from someone who loves God, or is it like someone who's just bitter with law, and like you read through it and you're kind of baffled which way to do it. Do you know what the name of that book in Hebrew is? So in Hebrew, the name of the book is Kohelet. Have you ever heard of that? Kohelet? And a lot of people will translate it the preacher. So Kohelet is the preacher. But the weird thing about it is it's a feminine participle. It's the girl preaching. So is it Lady Wisdom? It's like what? Like I was confused before. It's like, what do I do with the? You know, is it Solomon? If it's Solomon, why is he naming it the girl preacher? The girl preaching one? And like I don't know, but I know if I didn't learn my participles here, I would have never even asked that question because I would just hear, oh, it's Kohelet, and not realize it's a feminine participle. Veruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim al panei tehom. So parallelism there. Dawson, do you want to tackle this one? Right? So the way you say it is, this is a vav, so we're going to say it as a V. This is an A-class vowel, and this is a doubling dagesh. So you say vai, but it's a doubling dagesh, so you start over with the yod again. Yo, this is a quiescent letter, so you don't say anything. Vayomer, vayomer. So that's exactly right. So in Hebrew narrative, whenever you start off, you have a tense, and so this is perfect. But in Hebrew, when you tell a story, whatever you start off with, the next one is going to be in the other tense. And he created the world, and it looks like it says, and he was saying. So you got a perfect, and then you've got an imperfect, right? Does everybody understand that? Because an imperfect is incomplete action, either past or future. But when you're telling a story, the way you tell the story in Hebrew is the first one's a perfect. The one after that's an imperfect, but they call it a vav consecutive, which means even though it's in the imperfect, you translate it as a perfect. God created the world and God said, but the way they did it is they convert all the following ones. So the first one establishes what it is. So it's almost as if he said God created the world and he was saying and he was separating and he was doing. But it doesn't mean that he was, because it converts. In narrative, it converts to whatever the opposite is. And you can convert it the other way. If you start with an imperfect, then all the rest of them will be converted perfects. I don't know why they do that, but that's the rule they follow, and they follow it everywhere. Vayomer Elohim. Let's see, where would we be? Jacob? Yeah, I would say Yehi. 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 So a doubling Dagesh has to be in the middle of the letter. So this is actually that O class pointing, a holum. So a holum vav is a historically long O.
But you don't pronounce the olive.
The aleph is a nothing letter. People will say it's the vowel sound you make when you say the word McCoy. And like, I can't hardly hear that, so we're just going to call it a nothing.
Would it just be or?
Or, Vayehi or. Vayomer Elohim Yehi or. And then Audrey, would you like to do this one? Vayehi or. Now this one doesn't have the double Dagesh, which means it's not a converted form. So Elohim said, you could read this, light will be. That's the way Paul reads it in 2 Corinthians 4:6. Most people say this is a jussive form, and then they'll put a note saying there's no difference in spelling between a jussive and an imperfect. And it's like, well, how can I know the difference? But most people will call this a jussive, kind of a subjunctive in Greek, if you're thinking that way. Light should be or light will be. And then this is not a converted because it doesn't have the doubling Dagesh there. So how would you translate Vayehi or if it's not a converted tense? Would you do it? And light was being. God said light will be. And what was the result of that? And light was being. It's kind of a weird thing. We've talked in this class before, I imagine, that the phrase Vayomer Elohim occurs 10 times. And the 10 commandments are called the 10 words. And so it's like God created the world with 10 words. And God said it and it happened. And God comes to us and says 10 words and we don't do what God wants. God said, you will not murder people. It's like, well, I don't know, you will not do this. Well, I don't know. And it's like we're being anti-creation there because when God says it, everything else does it except us. When God says it, we don't do it. So I don't know if how much of that, but it is interesting to me. And then this one, Vayar Elohim et Haor. So notice in this Vayar doubled Dagesh, which means this is a converted imperfect. This one isn't. This one is converted. And notice the quiescent aleph, you don't make any sound at all. Vayar. And then you don't actually say any letter. But we have letters like that in English, don't we? Where we have a letter and it actually doesn't make any sound. Vayar Elohim et Haor. So that's an anaphoric use of the definite article. Let there be light, and there was light, and the light. So one way to remember light as or is, do you know the name of the city Abraham was living in when God called him? You know how you spell it in Hebrew? What city was he living in? If we're going to translate the name. He's living in the city of lights, or technically this looks like a passive participle. He lives in the enlightened city. Of course, it was anything but enlightened. They're sacrificing children, fertility cult and all that. So he's claiming to live in the enlightened city, and God comes to him, and God brings him real light and takes him out, takes him back to the Garden of Eden, or promises to take him back to the Garden of Eden. Vayavdale. And you say, how do you know that's silent schwa? And here's how we know. So our first little rule. This is a Begad Kafat Dagesh. And Begad Kafat Dageshes can only appear before a closed syllable. So the fact that this has a Dagesh means this is a closed syllable. Vayavdale. And if you listen, that's exactly how our guy says it. Vayavdale Elohim. This is the word separate, and it's nearly always used in the religious sense of God separating what's profane from what's holy. So God's separating light and darkness. God Yavdale Bain Ha'or Uvein Ha'choshek, between the light and between the darkness. To the darkness he called Layla, La-Yi-La, Vayehi Erev, Vayehi Boker, Yom Echad. So that's five verses. We made it through. So well done. Make sure you study the vocab for the Friday quiz, and I hope you have a great evening.